Welcome to the Farzy Show, presented by Destination Retirement, destinationretirement.com. Here from the Steven Singer Studios. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Wednesday morning. Ahead of the 76ers tipping off tonight in Game 3, north of the border, with their Eastern Conference opening round series against the Toronto Raptors. We'll be getting into that game with our friend Paul Hudrick coming up a little bit later in the show. But other than that, Phillies lose again, Flyers lose again, and they just keep losing. That's what they do. And Ricky Bo blows my mind. I'll say that. Post-game live last night. So we'll talk about all that and more on the show today. But let me just get this out of the way for all the people in the chat right out of the gate. Hey, happy 420. All right? Happy 420. Does 420 mean as much to you as it used to before it was like decriminalized and all that stuff and legal and a lot of like, is that? No. It should. It should still should mean the same to all you fine people. But nonetheless, welcome in. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to note the date. The date today is 420, and I don't note the date because of any extracurriculars that some people like to enjoy. I note the date just to say that it's so early in the Phillies season to really be wildly upset, to blow a gasket, to get red in the face with anger, or maybe suggest getting hammered to solve problems in the Phillies lineup or with the Phillies in general, because they have found different ways to lose. And last night was the way to lose, a new way to lose, at least in terms of the bullpen actually blowing a save or blowing a hold opportunity. And last night, Jeurys Familia gave up a bomb to Cron. And that was pretty much the difference in the ballgame, as the Phillies ended up losing to the Rockies in the second game of the 3-game series, 6-5, in a game where Kyle Schwarber looked like he was making good contact, hit a home run to left field on the outside corner of the plate, was where the pitch ended up, and he just went with the pitch and belted it out there right over the left field wall of Coors Field. That was great. You get the ball rolling a little bit. Matt Vierling was getting on base. Matt Vierling had an RBI single for you last night that he kind of inside outed into the right center field, shallow right center field. You're feeling good. Kyle Gibson started to give up some runs, and then he started to not feel so good. And by the time Schwarber ended up hitting that home run to give you a 1-run lead in the ball game in the fourth inning, you were starting to feel like, okay, maybe they can close this out. The bullpen's been pretty good this year. Maybe they can close this out. They didn't close it out, unfortunately. And Familia ended up being the culprit of the first blown save, if you will, of this Phillies season. We've seen this lineup not hit. We've seen starting pitching get beat around a little bit. Yesterday was the first time that we saw the Phillies bullpen not come up in the clutch. Now, again, Kyle Gibson did not pitch great in this start by any means, but pitched good enough to win with this lineup, at least some people would expect, especially because they did score 5 runs. But with this particular season, the bar was set a little bit higher with this lineup. Now, I've been saying and said this yesterday, it feels like we have a bunch of 4-hole hitters. Nobody's really setting the table. A lot of guys swinging for the fences, a lot of guys swinging early in counts and being aggressive, which we like to an extent. But I don't feel like you are really going to start to heat up and see how good this lineup can be until the season carries on a little bit further. You got to get through April, be patient a little bit here, which is something I never like to preach, because it's not like you're paying less money to go to a game now than you will in a couple of months or a couple of weeks, I should say. But I think with this particular lineup, you got to be patient. You got to wait till they can click it into high gear, and I think that will happen. I'm confident that will happen. Right now is not a lot of fun. I'm not going to do what y'all think I might do, which is completely freak out, man, on how this lineup is not performing or how this Phillies team isn't winning more than anything. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm going to hold off on that for just a minute. I'm going to hold off on that until the Phillies take what I believe to be the brilliant advice of a one Ricky Bottalico. I will play for you what Ricky said last night on Post Game Live, and then I will give a little bit of a backstory. And I don't think Ricky got into it, but I can tell why. I can tell you why Ricky said what he said last night. And let me just preface this by saying, Ricky Bottalico, I love. I absolutely love Ricky Bottalico. He and I used to have. I used to make an espresso. We had a little espresso thing at a little espresso machine at NBC. We called it Cafe de Nona. and we'd have espresso. We'd talk baseball. It's great, or whatever else. Here's Ricky Bo last night after the Phillies 6-5 loss to the Colorado Rockies in Colorado.
This only the first blown save for the Phillies this season. How do you get mad at that? You can't yet, but I'm fed up watching this team lose in all different ways. One day they don't hit. One day they don't hit and don't pitch. One day they don't pitch well. It's a mix of everything. They seriously need to have one of those team dinners and go drink or something, because you need to come together.
Go get hammered. Pass around the Jack Daniels. Get a case of beer, whatever it might be. But that's what this team needs. Phillies are 4-8. There's 12 games. Yes, it's not the best thing in the world. It's not the most enjoyable brand of baseball. I 1000% agree. But maybe that's what they need, to go get hammered. And maybe today, 420, is a day, especially being in Denver. Maybe this is what the Phillies need. Just indulge in some performance-hindering drugs, as the great comedian Jay Black. Jay Black is a great comedian. Lewis Black is the one I'm thinking of. Everyone was talking about performance-enhancing drugs. What about Babe Ruth? He had performance-hindering drugs and still was amazing. Maybe that's what the Phillies need. Now, let me give you some backstory on Ricky Bo's point. Ricky Bo once told me a story, and I think he told me this on the air, so I'm not really, this isn't crazy. But in one team he was with in the minors, let's just say that. They were going through a big slump. The whole team. They just couldn't win a game. The manager that was coaching him at the time, on a road trip, stopped the bus, or maybe it was right before they left the ballpark of their latest loss. They got swept in some road series. And the manager came on the bus, the player's bus, with 2 cases of beer. And he just said, when we all get to wherever the hell they were going, everyone on this bus better be drunk and figure it the hell out. And what do you know? It stopped their slump. It was something out of the ordinary. It was get drunk as a team, figure it out. What is the line in Vierno Veritas? Maybe they needed some airing of grievances. Maybe they needed a little Festivus on that bus. Then feats of strength. I don't know. But all I got to tell you is it worked for that minor league team that Ricky Bottalico played on. So because it worked for that team, Ricky sees another team struggling, seeing another team find ways to lose ball games. Go get hammered. Albeit 12 games into the season. Go get sloshed. And then come out the other side, hopefully a better ball club before they come home from this 7-game road trip, And hopefully we'll see a better brand of baseball when the Phillies return. Zach Eflin gets the ball for the Phillies today against the Rockies. They try to salvage a win, and they already lost another series, lost both series on this road trip, unfortunately, but hopefully they'll avoid being swept. And the Rockies, I give them credit. They're playing really well. Cron that was a 6th home run of the season last night. So he's hitting the ball pretty damn well. And that was a home run in the 7th inning that he had, by the way, to put the Rockies on top against the Phillies in that 7th inning. Overall for Kyle Gibson, though, just to give you his line last night, 3 runs, all earned, 6 hits, 2 walks, 3 strikeouts. Sir Anthony Dominguez ended up coming in, allowing 2 runs as well in 2 1/3 innings of work. So certainly not a shining moment for this Phillies bullpen last night, unfortunately. And Freeland, who just inked his new $64 million deal, $64.5 million deal, pitched pretty well against Phil's 2 earned runs in 5 innings of work. But again, a different lineup last night. This time, Gene Segura was leading off for the Phillies. He took the collar 0 for 4. JT Realmuto continues to hit. He was 3 for 4 last night. His average is at .333. Alec Boehm got on base with a walk and scored a run in this game. He's hitting .471 while playing the hot corner for the Phillies. Vierling had a couple of hits last night. He's got his average up to 192. There you go. We're all looking better. But again, Zach Eflin gets the ball today. 3:10 start time today for the Phillies. The Flyers, all I'll say about them is they lost last night 5-2. So that's pretty much what I got for you there as far as the Flyers go. So, Miss Guzzi. Let's talk some 76ers basketball before we get into it with our friend Paul Hudrick coming up in just a second. I don't know what Tyrese Maxey was carrying to the plane. There was a picture of him carrying a big Tupperware container. I don't know what was in that thing. But I'll tell you this much. He looked happy carrying it because the man never looks unhappy. We'll put it that way. Well, unless he's in the fourth quarter of a playoff game and he's got 38 points and he can't get to 40, then he might be a little unhappy. But even then, he'll still play with a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. I have felt very comforted by the way the Sixers have gone into the playoffs and the way they've played the first two games of this series. Going into the playoffs, we have discussed at great length our concerns about this team. I have told you mine. You've rattled off yours in our chat. People have hit me up on social media to talk about how they have been concerned about the Sixers and how they were playing going into the playoffs. Whatever happened in that week leading up to game one, it seems like there was a lot of air cleared. Maybe they took Ricky Bo's advice. Maybe they went and got hammered. I doubt it. But whatever it is, it's working. I feel like we have had a revitalization a little bit of Doc Rivers when it comes to his relations with this team. And I feel like Danny Green, above all else, has found a little bit of a rhythm and a little bit of a flow getting starters minutes again with this team. I think this is a great sign, without question, for the Sixers going into Game 3 north of the border. The big question is how they're going to play now without Matisse Thybulle being available. For me, it's not as much of a concern as it was maybe in the first game of this series, and especially not as much a concern after Game 2, where Danny Green logged you 38 minutes in the game and dunked a basketball towards the end of his 38 minutes logged in that game. So I feel a lot better about that. Plus, I also feel like Danny Green's also playing good defense in this. I feel like you've gotten good defense from Tobias Harris as well, who has D'd up pretty well, and Pascal Siakam. So I feel very comforted in not having that defensive prowess, from a guy like Matisse Thybulle. My only concern going into Game 3 is the overall shooting of the Toronto Raptors. You have seen them perform very well throughout the regular season against the Sixers, shooting beyond the arc really well. They have also rebounded offensive glass extremely well. And that's something I have noted many times. On the offensive glass throughout the entire season, the Raptors out-rebounded the Sixers by more than double. It was something crazy, like 56 rebounds on the offensive glass throughout the year to merely 24 from the 76ers. That's insane. So when I look at this game, north of the border, without Matisse Thybulle, I'm going to be looking at offensive rebounds, and I'm going to look at three-point defense from beyond the arc, because that's something that Matisse Thybulle does a phenomenal job of, defending the perimeter. And you're not going to have your best perimeter defender against a team that shoots pretty well at home from beyond the arc, especially against the 76ers. The way the Sixers have played the first two games makes me feel a lot better about that. Those are my concerns. I know a lot of other people have a concern about Nick Nurse and whether or not his begging of the officials is going to change anything in this series, whether or not Joel Embiid or James Harden are not going to be getting the calls that they got in games 1 and 2. That went out the window in game 1, as I explained, because it started to get chippy and the refs needed to call everything in that particular game in order to control the game. The Sixers were still called for 10 less fouls than the Raptors were in game 2. So for me, I think that petitioning, that lobbying from Nick Nurse is not going to help him and the Raptors in game 3. I don't think calling out the officials 3 or 4 different times, 3 different times at least. I don't think Nick Nurse calling out the officials 3 times in 2 games so far is going to help his cause in getting less fouls called on his players. I don't know any ref that is going to hear that type of criticism and think to himself, let me help this guy out. Oh, you know what? Nick Nurse, in his 3 times complaining about how I do my job, really makes a fine point. Let me take his advice. Let me make him happier and not call as many fouls. Look, the only way you can do this is to not foul. That'd be my advice. I know that was Doc Rivers' advice when Tyronn Lue talked about it, when Bickerstaff talked about it, and now Nick Nurse is talking about it. The only thing that makes you think that maybe there will be a change is that it certainly felt like after Tyronn Lue talked about it and after Bickerstaff talked about it, it felt like there was a little bit of a hit towards the 76ers, like they weren't getting those foul calls. And I can remember Joel Embiid and James Harden getting more and more frustrated in the last couple of games of the season because they weren't getting as many calls. That didn't last long. And I can't see that kicking in now in the playoffs. But in my conspiracy theory world, all right, I think about what Markel Fultz had to say last week about how the NBA doesn't want to see the process validated. Now, he was talking about, to give it context, he was talking about Joel Embiid getting the MVP. That's not going to happen. But what if also the Sixers winning or sweeping a first-round playoff series even validates the process a little bit further and puts them in that next round of the playoffs, and then maybe they'll have an opportunity to get to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time since the days of Allen Iverson. Seeing the Sixers advance past the point that seeing the Sixers finally advance past the point that they were at before the process even started would be the first step, really, in saying that the process worked. Now, you have Joel Embiid, the process worked. No, the process was about winning. It wasn't just about getting one player. It's about getting a series of players and then winning a championship. But as I always point out, the year before the process started, the Sixers lost in Game 7 of the Eastern Conference semifinals to the Celtics. Now, how they got to that Game 7, there's a lot of injuries to the Chicago Bulls in the first round, and then the Sixers fought their way to a Game 7 against the Celtics. But even if that was before the process started, the following year, Sixers were terrible. At the end of that year, Doug Collins was gone, and then the process officially started when the Sixers hired Sam Hinkie and then traded Drew Holiday away on draft night and brought in Nerlens Noel and Michael Carter-Williams. Oh, wow, they got 2 players in the first 11 picks, and neither one of them was Giannis. Go figure. But anyway, I digress. The Sixers need to get past that point, finally. It shouldn't have taken as long as it is gonna, and hopefully it ends this year. The way the Sixers have been playing leads me to believe that they have a legit chance, depending on who they draw in that second round. They have a legit, no matter who they draw, they have a legit chance of getting to that Eastern Conference Finals. That's the ultimate goal. They do that, and I think that would put Doc Rivers back here in Philadelphia for at least one more year, and that would also give a little bit more legitimacy to Joel Embiid possibly becoming an MVP next year. He got us team to a conference finals last year. This is great, So for me, I think that would elevate the process pretty damn well. In the conspiracy theory of conspiracy theories, I don't think the NBA is necessarily rooting for that. So maybe they will make it a little bit harder in this first round series against the Nick Nurse Raptors. As they go on, the Nick Nurse Raptors, as they go on in this series, maybe you see the foul calls start to dwindle a little bit. I just don't think Nick Nurse has done himself any favors to try to earn it. That's a conspiracy theory. Dealing in reality, I don't think Nick Nurse has really done enough to butter up the officials to actually call games his way. You complain about somebody else's job a couple of times in a short span. Generally speaking, they're not going to look favorably upon you. Before we get to our friend Paul Hudrick to talk all things Sixers and the remainder of that series, let me tell you about my man, Mike Seibert at Destination Retirement, destinationretirement.com. Mike is a retirement income certified professional at Destination Retirement LLC, a partner of 1847 Financial, and an advisor for Eagles, Sixers, and Phillies fans only. Maybe next year the Flyers. When it comes to long-term savings, why are you giving up current enjoyment of your income? The answer is to have income streams in retirement. It only makes sense then to understand how retirement income streams work so that you can direct savings in ways that give you the highest income when you retire. Think of it like climbing a mountain. Is the objective just to get to the top of the mountain, or is the objective to get to the top of the mountain and safely back down the mountain? Going up the mountain is your accumulation phase. Going back down the mountain is your distribution phase. These are the 2 phases of your financial life, and each should be addressed separately. This month, let's talk about college planning. We all know college is expensive. Have you ever thought about how it will affect your retirement? Let Mike show you an efficient way to help pay your kids' college and still retire on your own terms. Your first step is to avoid starting your growth cycle over by depleting accounts like 529s for big expenses like college. You don't want to lose your position in your financial growth cycle and have to start over. You can't get that time back. Instead, set yourself up with the ability to use vehicles that you can take money out of without starting your growth cycle over again. Find out how your annual retirement savings can help your college savings, and how your annual college savings can help your retirement savings. Mike will set up your own portal and retirement analyzer, then use the software to help you navigate through the different phases of your financial life. Your questions right now can be answered by setting up a meeting with my man Mike. Give him an email right there at GoBirds at 1847 Financial. That's GoBirds at 1847financial.com, or call his office at 484-275-6035. That's 484-275-6035. You can also visit their website at destinationretirement.com. And as always, go Birds and play the song. Mother's Day, May 18th, folks. Is there any better memory as a child than getting a nice little sweet treat from mom? Delicious sweet treat. Maybe a hot summer day. You're out on the stoop. You're out in the yard playing with your friends. Here comes mom with a creamsicle. Delicious. So how about the brand new 24-karat gold-dipped creamsicle rose? Light peach petals from Steven Singer Jewelers, and this is a gift that will last a lifetime. Why buy flowers for Mother's Day that'll die in a week? Why not buy something that will last a lifetime? It's just $59 at IHateStevenSinger.com, and always fast and free shipping at IHateStevenSinger.com. You'll give mom a gift that will last a lifetime. A beautiful creamsicle gold-dipped rose from Steven Singer Jewelers. This is his brand new rose color, so make sure you take advantage right now for Mother's Day for mom and treat her to this amazing, amazing gold dip rose from Steven Singer Jewelers, preserved and guaranteed to last a lifetime. The sweetest way to tell mom just how much you love those little moments is with this gold dip rose from Steven Singer Jewelers. Order yours today from Steven Singer Jewelers at IHateStevenSinger.com. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. One place, one price. That's IHateStevenSinger.com. Without further ado, let's talk some 76ers basketball and what we see happening in this Game 3 matchup tipping off tonight north of the border without Matisse Thybulle. Let's jump on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line, talk to our good friend Paul Hudrick of Liberty Ballers. Gentlemen, welcome back to the show on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line from Liberty Ballers, our Sixers man extraordinaire, Mr. Paul Hudrick. Paulie, what's happening, brother?
Just living the dream over here, Mark. Enjoying the Sixers being up 2-0. It's wonderful.
It makes life a lot easier. I got to ask you this right out of the gate. Here's your Twitter profile so the good people can follow you. There's your lovely Carrie. There's Miles as well. Now let me ask this. A.K.A. Mr. Paul, per Tyrese Maxey. Tyrese Maxey's big on the Mr. or Mrs. first name, which I was raised to do as well. Not everybody was, but when did you become Mr. Paul?
Media day. That was so what had happened was throughout Tyrese Maxey's entire rookie year, he had only met us through Zoom calls because that was the world we were living in. So on media day, that was literally the first time he had ever seen me. So I asked him a question, which I thought was a pretty good question. And he stopped me afterwards and he said, "I'm sorry, Mr. Paul. This is amazing. I've never seen you before. So seeing you in person is amazing." And he said, "But I'm sorry, I completely missed your question because I was so amazed by seeing you. Can you please repeat it?"
Now, has he been amazed, as our audience has been here on the Farzy show, of your different looks?
He knows who I am. All right. He recognizes
Copy that. Let's talk about that young fellow, Mr. Tyrese, for a second there. I have enjoyed so much his improvement, his maturation process, his confidence growing throughout the season. I felt like there was this little lull when Embiid came back from his COVID stint, and there was like, hey, how do we make this work? And now James Harden has been thrown into the mix, and it seems like a guy like Tyrese Maxey has only grown, especially in these first two playoff games. How is it this guy has not been a finalist or isn't a finalist this year for most improved player?
I think that's a fair question. You know, in a weird way, I wonder if it's a compliment to him because people saw what he did in his rookie year and thought like, okay, this guy's kind of primed for an improvement. But to your point, Mark, I mean, this level of improvement is crazy. The reason why he falls to the Sixers at 21 in the draft is because he shoots less than 30% from three at Kentucky. He comes to the NBA, he shoots 30% in his rookie season. Now this year he's over 40%. And I think it's just a testament to how much this guy works and how much he puts into his craft. And as Doc Rivers has said quite often, he works more than anyone else. They literally track how often guys are in the gym, and Tyrese Maxey is lapping everybody. He's always in the gym. He's always perfecting his craft. He's always wanting to get better, and he really wants to be great. And I think through two games, you're kind of seeing like, I think one of his expressions that Tyrese likes to use, because he does use quite a lot of them, is when you're practicing when no one's around, that prepares you for when thousands are around, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're seeing so far, is that all the work he's put in, right now as a 21-year-old second-year player, he does not look remotely out of place on a team that is trying to win a title. And, you talked about the fact, it's so funny, Mark, because it feels like that was forever ago, right? When we were talking about like, oh, I don't know, him and Joel Embiid not quite meshing. It's not quite, they when they're on the court separately, that's when they do their best. And then even when James Harden got here, it was, how is that going to affect Maxey? And if anything, and Doc Rivers has pointed this out many times, it's helped Maxey because he's a score-first guy. He's always been a score-first guy. So with James Harden taking on the responsibilities of being the point guard, running the offense, getting guys organized and in place, it's allowed Maxey to play much more freely. And I think through 2 games, big time, he's clearly playing freely. And the attention that Joel Embiid and James Harden are drawing, it's just leaving so many great looks for Tyrese Maxey right now.
I've just enjoyed the maturation process. And I hear what you're saying as far as the kind of a weird compliment to Tyrese Maxey, because it's almost like the NBA is saying, the voters are saying, no, he's always been this good. He's just logging more minutes. I guess that's what I'll try to take away from it.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. But yeah, let's talk about this whole Joel Embiid versus Nick Nurse thing now, and the I will say animated, not hostile by any means, but animated conversation they were having on the sidelines in the fourth quarter of Game 2. I have never seen a coach complain about the officiating this much, and it is pretty impressive, actually, because I feel like he thinks this is the only way he could get his team to anything close to a level that will win this series, is if he just begs for calls. What are you taking from the Nick Nurse pleading for lack of foul calls and not sending Joel Embiid to the line?
I want to start this by saying I think Nick Nurse is a hell of a coach.
Yes, I love it already. Yes, I agree.
I think there is an argument to be made that he might be the best coach in the NBA, and like that's not hyperbole. Like I really do feel that way. He is an outstanding coach. What he's been able to do over the years with his defensive schemes, how he's been able to at times stymie Joel Embiid, like it's really impressive. He's won a championship. His first year as a full-time head coach, he won a championship. So the guy can coach. But yeah, Mark, I agree with you. I've never quite seen a coach lobby to this degree. He was incredulous for 48 straight minutes last night. Like you watch him, and I'm sure this was very strategic by the people at the Wells Fargo Center. He was up on that screen up top very often last night for the fans to see. And I think his complaints to the media are well-intentioned. I think he's trying to, clearly, one, get the officials on the side. And even as Joel Embiid admitted last night, it's him trying to rally his guys and get them to believe that they can stop Joel Embiid. But I think the reality is that I think it's kind of hurting them, because when you have your coach out there every night blaming the officials and going scorched earth on them every single night, how does that not creep into the players' heads a little bit? So that when Joel Embiid is getting to the line, 11 times in the first quarter, how does that not then creep into your players' minds? Like, here we go again. Like, this guy's just going to get every call. And I think there have been certain phases of the game where you can see the Raptors almost like deflated, because this is a good basketball team. This is a prideful basketball team. You have multiple guys that were on that championship squad, a couple years back, and you just kind of see the life coming out of them every time they don't get a call or every time something doesn't go their way. So again, as well-intentioned as I feel like this might be from Nick Nurse, I sort of think the strategy is backfiring on him.
It seems like it, especially in the first, 3 minutes of Game 2, Joel Embiid is getting fouled. They're trying to get under his skin, and he walks away with 10 points in the first 5 minutes, 19 points in the quarter. So, that kind of backfired just a little bit. While we're talking about coaches, Doc Rivers has a lot to do. As a matter of fact, on this show, our chat has taken to calling him Duck Rivers because he ducks responsibility. I like it. I'm a fan of it. I think it's very well. My chat is hilarious. I mean, come on. But when it comes to this Doc Rivers fellow, and I've restored Doc for the time being because he's coaching very well. He's still got a lot to do. At least make a conference finals to come back next year. Am I witnessing a little bit of a revitalized Doc Rivers? And I'll give you some examples here. One, Danny Green in the starting rotation or in the starting five immediately. No, Thibault here, then Green in Canada. And then the way they weren't calling fouls at practice leading up to game one to kind of get the team competitive again, get an edge back in them, I think are two great things that he has done with this team. What have you taken away from Doc Rivers, and how much has he improved his status here again as the Sixers head coach?
I've been as critical of Doc Rivers as anyone. I question a fair amount of what he's done, dating back to last season in the playoffs. I don't think he had a particularly good postseason last year. Clearly in that Hawks series, he did not. But I think the biggest adjustments I've seen, one is playing Paul Reed as his backup five. It seemed like a no-brainer to all of us. But here we are. He did it. But you have to give him credit because he did do it. Like, he went away from the veteran guy in DeAndre Jordan that he trusts, that he has built a relationship with, and he went to Paul Reed, who is a little bit greener, who is a little bit more prone, I guess, to mistakes and fouls and all that. But it's been obvious through these first two games that Paul Reed he's an imperfect option, but he's their best option right now. So I give Doc credit for, kind of conceding it, because Doc can be rigid. That's the biggest knock on Doc Rivers, is that he can be rigid in who he plays, when he plays them, how he plays them. So for him to go to Paul Reed, I think that shows an ability to adjust and see things a little bit more clearly than maybe he was a couple weeks ago. And then I think the way he's played his starters so far, and that's really a product all season long. He's played his starters bigger minutes than he did last season. And I think, again, that was something during the playoffs, during that Hawks series, I thought he could have relied on his starters a little bit more, and he didn't do that. Against Toronto, I think you've seen much more of that. You haven't seen very many minutes, if at all, of no Joel Embiid and no James Harden, except for maybe when the game is out of hand. And then it's funny because Doc told us that he cut the playbook back. He wanted them to be really good at a few things as opposed to have a bunch of things that maybe they're not as good at. And I guess, them playing well makes it look better. So maybe they just look more creative because they're playing so well. But to me, this is like two of the more creative games I've seen. They're doing some really interesting things offensively. You've seen Tyrese Maxey being used a ton as a screener for James Harden. The results speak for themselves as far as the space that's created for Tyrese Maxey, for James Harden, for Joel Embiid. There was one play in game one where Maxey's bringing the ball up, James Harden's at the nail, and Joel Embiid's in the corner. And it's like all of this stuff. Maybe Doc Rivers was kind of playing it close to the chest all season long and wasn't showing us these looks, and he's bringing them out now for the playoffs, which kudos to him for that. And the other thing I would say too, Mark, kind of going back to the Nick Nurse discussion, Nick Nurse, again, has gone like scorched earth on the officials, just every night, just bubble, every night crushing them and really trying to stick up for his team. Doc Rivers last night almost complimented the officials and tried to say it's the playoffs. Their job's really tough. And it's like, I see what you're doing there, Doc Rivers. It's a little catch flies with honey thing right there. So I think, it's only 2 games, but again, I think Doc Rivers has done a really nice job. He hasn't been as rigid as we've seen in the past, and it's a very encouraging sign for the Sixers moving forward.
I couldn't agree more. Is Danny Green okay? Did he get hospitalized? Is he okay? Did he get the PED test? What's going on there?
He might have. Listen, good for Danny Green, and good for the Sixers, because this is happening at the exact perfect time. Him kind of refining his legs. It's been a really tough year for Danny. Between the multiple injuries he's had, he had a bout with COVID. He's 34 years old. And there's a lot of tread on those tires. He's played a lot of playoff minutes. He's won 3 championships. So there's a lot of tread on those tires. So for him to now in the playoffs be playing his most minutes and be playing his best basketball, it really couldn't have come at a better time. And it was such a cool moment to see everyone kind of have fun with him. Like you said, Tyrese Maxey literally said, our first thought was is Danny okay after that? Joel Embiid joked about the drug test. Tobias Harris asked if SportsCenter's still at a top 10 because he thought that should be number 1. Doc Rivers said it was equivalent to him dunking in a game. So, but yeah, I do agree with what you said earlier, where it's, I think Doc Rivers is looking for more continuity with Danny Green. I think offensively in the starting lineup, it does open some more things up to have him in the corner, because you're seeing the Raptors' strategy is to really pack the paint, really show Joel Embiid a crowd, not let guys get to the rim, and that's leaving wide open opportunities on the perimeter. And so Danny Green really particularly hasn't shot that well yet, but those opportunities are going to keep coming. And quite frankly, you'd rather have Danny Green in that corner than Matisse Thybulle. So I personally think it was probably the right move by Doc Rivers. And so far, I think Danny Green's making him look pretty smart.
I 100% agree with that. How do these next 2 games go in Toronto, Paul Hudrick?
So I was talking about this earlier on one of our podcasts at Liberty Ballers. I feel like this game 3, if you remember from 2019 when they played the Nets, it was game 4 in Brooklyn. It was very tight, very tense, very close game. And Jimmy Butler had gotten thrown out because he got into a fight with Jared Dudley. It was a whole thing. But Joel Embiid was tremendous. He was great in that game, all throughout. Mike Scott hits the big corner 3, cashed out. That was a big thing after that game. And it came in a big spot. I see something similar happening in game 3 because I feel like, one, the Sixers have shot the lights out through 2 games. They're going to come down to earth a little bit. Mm-hmm. And I think the Raptors too, they're down 2-0. Like, they're going to be desperate. They're going to throw everything they can at you. Will Scotty Barnes play? I think that's a big question. Will Gary Trent Jr. be healthy enough to be himself? So those are 2 pretty big factors. But I think game 3, I see it being very tight, but I think the Sixers win it and go up 3-0. And then maybe, in game 4, the refs finally reward Nick Nurse for all of this, and Joel Embiid doesn't get calls in game 4, and we come back to Philadelphia for game 5.
Look, it's been blatantly obvious what Nick Nurse has been doing, but the thing that really got me was the Gary Trent Jr. charge that he wanted called. It ended up being a block. It was called a block. It was reviewed. It was still a block. And I thought it was clear. Tobias Harris stepped to his left. Gary Trent Jr. then stepped to his right to get into his path. I thought it was a clear block. They review it, still a block. And Nick Nurse, after the game, was talking about how much of a charge that was. And I was like, dude, there's enough things in this game. That's right. I said, dude, Paul Hudrick. I said, dude, there's enough things in this game that are ticky-tack. That was not ticky-tack. That was a good call.
When you lose 2 games in the playoffs by an average of 17.5 points, that's not because of officiating.
That's true.
That's because you are getting outclassed on the floor. Mm-hmm. And listen, the series could change. Who knows? Crazier things have happened. But through 2 games, it's so obvious that the Sixers have been the better team. It's nothing to do with free throws. It's nothing to do with officiating. The Sixers have been the better team. And the other thing, too, I want to add, Mark, and our mutual friend Tyrone Johnson kind of brought this up on Twitter earlier. He kind of said, what Joel Embiid is doing, this isn't historic for big men. Big men take a lot of free throws in the postseason. And just quick research, if you look, all of the Wilt Chamberlain, Shaquille O'Neal, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, even a guy like a Charles Barkley, all of these guys have had postseason, runs where they've averaged 10 plus free throws a game. Joel Embiid is averaging 11.8. It's not like it's preposterous. It's pretty in line with what a dominant post player does in the postseason. That's not even including guys like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Paul Pierce, guys who drew a ton of free throws from the perimeter. So, I think it's 100% from Nick Nurse. It's him. It's kind of like what you said off the top. It's him knowing he has no way to slow down Joel Embiid. Now you have Tyrese Maxey in the mix playing extremely well. You have Tobias Harris playing extremely well, and he just has no answers. So this is what he's going to.
Mm-hmm. I gotcha. The last question is probably the most important one here. Nick Nurse looks like the cute kid from Jerry Maguire all grown up, right? I need someone to go with me on this here. I really feel like that, that's a thing. And nobody's with me on this one. Paul Hudrick, are you at least with me on that, pal?
No.
Damn it.
No, fun fact about me though, when I was, I guess 8 to 10-ish range, yes, I looked like that kid. It's a true story.
Oh, you look like the kid, but that Nick Nurse did not.
No, I'll agree to disagree with you on that one. Yeah.
His name's Paul Hudrick, ladies and gentlemen. Check him out, Liberty Ballers, all things Liberty Ballers, LibertyBallers.com. Mr. Paul, according to Tyrese Maxey, the one and only. Oh, you know what? I have to get this in. I just say this real quick. How close to 100%? Not a long answer, just how close is James Harden to 100%?
It's a really difficult question to answer.
Oh, I know.
I know that he is definitely not 100%. I can say that, but it's potentially a $270 million question that the Sixers are going to have to figure out whether he is not 100% or whether he is 32 years old and all these years are catching up to him. So I am glad I'm not the guy who has to make that decision.
All right, we will address that another day. Paul Hudrick, always great catching up with you. Once again, make sure you check him out, Liberty Ballers. All thing Liberty Ballers right there, libertyballers.com with my man Paul Hudrick. And I believe his shooting sleeve has its own Twitter account and Instagram and TikTok.
Does my Poison Ivy have its own shoot? No.
Paul Hudrick joining us on the Rothman Orthopedics guest line. Thank you, Paul.
Anytime, Mark.
Really enjoy catching up with our good friend Paul Hudrick whenever we get the opportunity to do so. And wouldn't you know it, shortly after that interview, Paul sent me a text message. This is the cute kid from Jerry Maguire. I don't know his real name. He's the cute kid from Jerry Maguire. The human head weighs 8 pounds. That kid. And this is Paul Hudrick at the same age. They are the same person. What? For those on the podcast, I'm showing one picture of the cute kid from Jerry Maguire and then another picture of Paul Hudrick around the same age. And they're the same person. Now, I'll show you this picture one more time of Paul as a young man. First off, he was not arrested. I asked him, were you arrested as an 8-year-old? Like, what is the deal here? Because he's holding up this little sign in front of him, and it looks like a mugshot. Like, what were you in for, man? And he was like, that was Pee Wee football. I don't know what they were trying to prove. But yeah, so there you go. And I asked him, hey, should I show that on the show? And he goes, yeah, absolutely. So yeah, there you go. If you would have shown me this picture and said, who is this? You know this man. You've had him on your show a lot. Who is it? I would have never guessed Paul Hudrick. Not in a million years. But anyway, yeah, I'd say he's a pretty much a dead ringer for that kid. So there you go. There we go. Let me tell you about Rothman Orthopedics and how great Rothman Orthopedics is. Ladies and gentlemen, remember the old you? Remember the one that didn't have to put up with a fickle knee, a finicky hip, or a shoulder that no longer does what a shoulder should do? The Rothman approach to orthopedics is here to get you back to being you. Back to running, back to working, back to walking, back to playing, back to living your life the way you want. With same-day appointments available, you can start today at RothmanOrtho.com. That's RothmanOrtho.com, the official orthopedic partner of your Phillies, Eagles, and Sixers. That's RothmanOrtho.com. Hey, you want to win some money? You want to win some money, maybe off a friend or a family member that thinks they know everything about sports? Download the WinView app to your phone right now and have yourself a good time with the WinView app, the only game where fans can take on other fans and end the debate once and for all. Who is the bigger and more knowledgeable sports fan? If you have that friend or family member who thinks they know everything about sports, see if they can walk the walk as well as they talk the talk, and do that with a WinView contest. It's not a sports book. It's not daily fantasy. It's a social gaming app where fans can take on other fans and win those real money prizes for making predictions on the games that they love so much. So download the WinView app right now to your phone and have yourself a good time. How about PHL Sports Nation, Philadelphia Sports Nation, enhancing your Philadelphia sports fan experience across all social media and blogs at PHLSportsNation.com. Let's jump into our chat check today. It appeared as if things were hopping in the chat check today. So we're in the chat. So let's see if we can't get all this jazz in here. But Kevin, good morning. What's going on? Happy 420, Mally. Mally says, Mark, I'll catch up with you later. Happy 420, Mark. I'll catch up with you later at our usual smoking pot. I think that's supposed to say as per usual. Or either that or just Mally's already stoned out of his mind, which good for you, Mally. Live your life, bro. Dan Schwartz, good morning. Phillies suck. I think that's what you mean by they suck, but it's early in the season. See, that's the only thing I want to say. Is it fun to watch right now? No, absolutely not. You want to see your team win. Do you want to see them at 4-8? No, absolutely not. You want to see the team win. But as Ricky Bo said, go get hammered. All right. Petition for Alvarado. What's going on, buddy? What's up, Mullet? Good morning. Alex, what's going on? Kevin, happy 420 for Farzy. All right. I noticed the people wishing happy 420 are the people with the most typos. I don't think that's a mistake, or I don't think that's a coincidence. John Cheeseborough, what's up, buddy? Buddy T-Mac, what's going on? Real time, Tim. Real time, thanks for having me on a show last night. That was fun. And tell Miss Formaggio that was a good conversation. Dan Schwartz says, so happy we got the Sixers tonight. It'll be a nice thing after I watch slop from 3:10 to 7:10. Mally says, I think Ricky's going to have a heart attack live on the air one day. John Cheeseborough, buddy says, Gmail, everyone, what's going on? Says hello to everybody. Dan, what's up? Good morning. Real time hello again. Dan Schwartz. PJ breaking out the poll as he's dying inside watching the Phillies. Yes, the Phillies are not a good baseball team right now. We always say this about bad teams. Bad teams find ways to lose games. Phillies have certainly found different ways to lose games. Alyssa, what's up, Alyssa? Good morning. Dan Schwartz, I don't get why Matisse Thybulle doesn't pull a Bobby Valentine and wear a fake mustache so he can help his team. I saw one of those social media accounts put that out there, and whatever it was like Matisse Bible, whatever. And it was like basically a mustache Matisse Thybulle north of the border, whatever it might be. Yeah, I don't know. I also noticed this. I know I'm not going to get too much into the subject here, maybe like 10 seconds. I noticed that there was the mask mandate was reinstituted, and nobody gives a damn. I saw one guy at the Wells Fargo Center. If you didn't see this, the guy went in a medieval mask, like a plague mask, right? That just those things look creepy as hell. Like whatever the Italians were thinking back in the day with that, like, dude, what the hell? That's two dudes in one show. Anyway, but for me, I don't get it. I don't understand it. Hey, the mask mandate's back. It's like, is it? At the airport, I gotta fly in a month. I think I'm going to be wearing a mask regardless, but a little more than a month. It's a good time. We'll see what happens. Alex, what's up, Alex? How are you? Darian, what's going on? Dan Schwartz, this is a great point. It's crazy how little attention the draft is getting coming up. Everyone is convinced Howie is going to screw it up. Yeah. Here's where I'm at. I think Howie's moving up in the draft. I think Howie wants to do something sexy, and I wouldn't put it past him to get a quarterback. I'd love for him to stand pat and stay where he's at and simply get two defensive players. I don't need him to draft a wide receiver. He has proven to me he can't draft a wide receiver. I very much rather hold on to those picks, stay where you're at, get two defensive players, and with that, and with the acquisition of Hassan Reddick, I think you're going to be fine. You could basically remake, by getting a corner, getting a linebacker, you could remake your defense like that. So as far as I'm concerned, I think they sign Honey Badger. I think that happens. I think they go out there. I think they're going to kick the tires on Deebo Samuel, and I'd love to see that happen. I know that conversation is being had. But as far as the draft goes itself, if you stay where you're at, which I want them to do, take two defensive players, and I think you'll be set. I think you will be set. Alex, well, what did I miss? I missed something here. Real time. I'm convinced a brain surgeon cuts Duck Rivers' hair. No way a regular barber is doing his fade. Alyssa, happy Sixers Day to you as well. John Cheeseborough, also, when they're up 20, they usually let that slip away. The strategy came out. Hopefully they stop doing that. I think you're talking about the Sixers there. Alex, this is interesting. I don't want Joel Embiid to ever win MVP trophy at this point. Let him be motivated and the most deserving yet. Most shafted player in the NBA. Sorry, most shafted player in NBA history, says Alex. I want him to win an MVP. He's the best Sixer since Iverson. I would like that guy to also win an MVP. Darian, Sixers are goated and winning it this year. All right. I hope that's the case. Alyssa, I wish Tyrese Maxey knew me. We all wish Tyrese Maxey knew me. Apparently he's best friends with my brother now because they shot a commercial together. Superstars. Ray, what's up, Ray? Ray's in the chat. It's obvious if you want to watch the beginning of the year, Maxey, if you watched the beginning of the year, Maxey has worked on his game on the outside shot and the floater. He could do that at the beginning of the season. He could not do that in the beginning of the season. No, Ray, that's a perfect point. That's exactly what you can look to. I remember early in the season hearing Rivers talk about how he wanted Maxey to go to the hole and not use those floaters and all that stuff, or improve the outside shot. And you've seen it go across the board. I love when they do this on NBC, on NBC Sports Philly, when they show Tyrese Maxey in warmups, and they've done this at least once throughout the season. They show him in warmups, shooting the three, working on the three, and then implementing it in the game. Like, that's exactly why you do it. You know what? Imagine being a basketball player, Ben Simmons, and you're in a pregame warmup and you're shooting jump shots during pregame warmup. You don't do that in a game, Ben Simmons. Why? But just imagine a player doing that. That'd be crazy, Ben Simmons. Why would you shoot in the warmup and not shoot in the game? Like Tyrese Maxey goes out there, shoots in the warmup, and uses it in a game. It's crazy how that works, Ben Simmons. You know what I'm saying? It's just wild. Absolutely wild. It's crazy. I acknowledge don't remind what? Real time. No hate, but Paul sounds a little bit like Kermit. I don't hear it. Listening to Paul, I'm replaying Paul in my head right now. I'll give it a whirl next time. Man of 1,000 faces and maybe 1,000 voices. We'll see. That was from Melissa. Ooh, Ray says by him working on the refs, they will get a little bit more calls tonight at home. That's probably, yeah. With them at home, they might get a couple more calls. There you go. Not a bad point, Ray. Real time and Dan, thanks for your validation. Oh, you guys hear the Kermit thing? Okay. Jim Grasmeter, what's up, buddy? NFL Network had a mock draft last night. They had Drake London and Devin Lloyd going to the Eagles. I'll take that. I'll take a linebacker and a cornerback. Yeah, let's party. That's a good way to redo it. I don't mind that from the NFL Network. We talking Eagles while Paul is talking Sixers and Miss Piggy. Why must there be so many songs about rainbows? Is that the way the song goes? I don't remember. Miss Piggy. Anyway, you can't just say Kermit and then I don't do a Kermit. I mean, would I be a showman if I didn't? Come on. It's almost rude not to. Alyssa, I apologize for what I started. It's all good. Real time. I close my eyes and I can hear the VRBO commercial where Mr. Paul talks. Muppet Babies, great program. Henry, what's up, Henry? Little Huddy, that's funny. Darian, what's going on? What can't Paul Hudrick be, says Darian. That's a good point. I should just start a bit on the show where I just have different guests on, but refer to them all as Paul Hudrick. Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Hudrick, and it's really Derek Gunn. Like that's a good bit, right? I should do that. Sixers need to win tonight. John, I agree. Why not win tonight and get this over? Ooh, real time says Harden is 70%. With the contract looming, I hope he's only 70%, and maybe an offseason he takes to get better. Paul is a man of many looks. That is true. Matisse Thibault, agree 100%. Eagles have a chance to rebuild their defense in this draft. Jim, you and I, man. Wavelength. Rob, it's going to be the Farzy show with Ray Fitzgerald soon. All are welcome at the Farzy table of plenty. Real time wants me to say free throw. In a course of a sentence, that's difficult. In a course of a paragraph, it's difficult. In a sentence, it's not that difficult. I can say free throw. Did I say it? No, I said free throw. It's a free throw. There we go. Damn it. That was a thing I did on a real-time show last night. Drake London, wide receiver. Who am I thinking of? Wait a minute. I have my draft notes right here. Who the hell was I thinking of? Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of Nakobe Dean. Miscusi. Nakobe Dean. There we go. It's a game actually close. Phil Ridden, keep it in your pants, Farzy. What the hell's going on here? Henry won't mind that. Okay. Thanks to everybody. Oh, Elliot Henry, you're new. What's up? Welcome to the chat. Henry, I think this game's actually close. I think he's talking about the Sixers tonight. This game's actually close, and we hopefully use it and are able to learn how to close a game out. That'd be nice. That'd be nice. Yes, Nakobe Dean is a linebacker. What are we saying? That's the linebacker. And then a corner. What am I missing? I don't know. I'll have to go back and look at that. I never said I wanted a wide receiver. I mean, I said a wide receiver, but I didn't mean Drake London. Me scusi. Lloyd was the linebacker. What am I? I'm confused. Oh, I meant two linebackers. I said two linebackers. I meant a linebacker and a corner. Excuse me. Stingley is the guy that I like. Stingley and Hamilton were two of my original picks. Oh, there you go, John Cheeseborough. Yeah. So next Friday, I'm going to be doing a draft show with Jake and Media. So I'm trying to get all my notes in order. So there's like a million things in my head right now. So mi scusi. No, Stingley out of LSU is the corner. Drake London is the wide receiver that we referenced earlier on the show. Trent McDuffie is another first-round corner that I also like in this draft. Nakobe Dean is the linebacker out of Georgia. So that's where we're at with all those. The draft is fun. A lot of names, a lot of numbers floating around in my head. Mi scusi. But that's what you got right there. Thanks everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome as per usual. Fantastic stuff. We'll talk to you guys again tomorrow, hopefully after a 76ers victory tonight. Let's move into our morning rush brought to you by Sky Motorcars, SkyMotorcars.com. Hey, we showed you some baby pictures of Paul Hudrick there a second ago. How about this? Last night, the Suns were playing a little basketball game there, first round series. And Devin Booker went off in the second quarter. He had a 31-point first half. That's pretty good. But last night, I believe it was a three. He hit a three, fell to the ground right by the fans on the sideline there, and fist bumped a baby. You saw on the replay, somebody held their baby out closer. A baby, I'm talking about a baby here, held their baby out to Devin Booker, and Devin Booker fist bumped the baby. If you haven't seen it, it's worth seeing. Also worth noting from last night, Pelicans, Brandon Ingram, hell of a game, 37 points for the Pelicans last night. CJ McCollum also had a nice little game for himself. And our old boy, Jimmy Butler, our old friend, Jimmy Butler, hit 45 points, 45 or 46 for the Miami Heat last night. So he had himself a game, did Jimmy Butler. It was something like LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Jimmy Butler, most points in a playoff game by a Miami Heat player. Pretty impressive night. Fuji, I see you in the chat. What's going on there, buddy? Welcome in. So that's what you got going on. Sixers tip off tonight, 8:00 start time against the Raptors for game 3 north of the border. We all know it. No Matisse Thybulle. We'll see how that goes without his perimeter defense for the Sixers tonight. 3:10 start time for the Phillies. Zach Eflin gets the start for the Phils. Hopefully they salvage a game in this series. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everybody. I'm going to be going over my notes even more religiously now when it comes to this upcoming draft, and we'll get everything going there. So there you go. I'm really going to try to think about who popped in my mind there. Pretty crazy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. This is the Farzy Show, presented by Destination Retirement, destinationretirement.com, coming to you live every day from 6 to 7 a.m.-ish with the Farzy Show at the Steven Singer Studios. Thanks to Paul Hudrick for joining us. Thanks to Jim Hyde, who produced the program, did a phenomenal job. This is a Buzz Sports and Entertainment production. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. See ya.